Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population, and with little or no meaningful engagement, leaves a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say.
Good evening and welcome to Waste Primetime. My name is Choma Kalu, and tonight we are taking a closer look at what the State of States 2025 report reveals about governance and development across Nigeria. Now, every year, Budget releases the State of States report, a data-driven snapshot of how the Nigeria's 36 states are performing in governance, revenue generation, and fiscal responsibility. Now, it's one of the few tools that put facts, not politics, at the center of how we assess government performance. And the 2025 edition once again paints, a revealing picture. Some states are improving, others are struggling to stay afloat, and a few, are caught in a cycle of debt, low productivity, and poor public service delivery. Now, today on the show, we're digging into what the numbers really say about governance, and beyond the statistics, what do these numbers really mean for the everyday Nigerian? Why should we care about the debt ratios, the IGR, or fiscal discipline? And how do they affect development in our states? Now, remember, Ways is all about you, as you are the why in Ways. So be a part of the conversation as always, every day, and add your voice to the discussions. Head on now to YouTube if you've not already subscribed. You can subscribe at Official Upgrade TV. Hit that like button, share, and invite your friends and family to join the show now. And also, when I open my phone lines, I'd really, really love you to call in and let me hear what you have to say on this particular topic. As always, here is a quote for you to ponder on for today. It says, "Good governance is treating development as a mass movement in order to see the fruits of development reach the poor and the downtrodden." And that was said by Narendra Modi. That's India's Narendra Modi. Now, we'll get into this much later and get to find out how this affects our conversation. But first of all, we'll go on a quick break. And when I come back, I'll take you through my news interest for the day. Please stay with us. You're welcome back. You're still watching Ways. Now it's time for us to get through the newspapers and find out the stories that caught my interest for today. And the first one we're starting with is NELFund. NELFund records 1 million student loan applications and disburses 116 billion naira. Now the story says the Nigerian Education Loan Fund has announced that it has recorded over 1 million student loan applications since the official launch of the scheme on May 24th, 2024. Now, it also said it had disbursed over 116 billion in student loans, covering both institutional fees and upkeep allowances to students across the universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education since inception. Now, in a statement yesterday, the Director of Strategic Communications at NELFund, Oseyemi Oluwatoyin, said the remarkable achievements highlights the broad impact of President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda. According to the statement, this milestone reflects the administration's unwavering commitment to human capital development and inclusive growth. Also speaking on the achievement, Nelfund Managing Director and CEO Akintunde Sawyer described it as a defining moment in Nigeria's journey towards equitable education financing. He said, crossing the 1 million mark represents more data. It represents modern data now, and it represents the renewed hope for a generation of Nigerians determined to rise above financial barriers to education. It is a testament to visionary leadership, sound policy design, and the collective efforts of all stakeholders driving this transformative agenda. Now, first of all, I want to say kudos to the federal government on this initiative, and I see how much it has helped most Nigerian students at least go to school. You no longer have to use poverty as an excuse to not get education. This Nelfund initiative is helping a lot of students get their dream of going to school, of getting educated. Now, also, to the points that you have disbursed over 116 billion naira, it shows progress, and I really commend you for that. But just a word of caution, right? You can't be disbursing this money, asking people to come for these loans, and as this is happening, the tertiary institutions are increasing their school fees and all whatnot. You're only putting these people in more debt. So let's think about afterwards when they have to pay back, right? Let them not have more, accumulated funds to pay back more than they had already planned. Because, of course, I believe before you go for this fund, you would have calculated, okay, in 4 years, I would be graduating, and this is what I have to pay. But now imagine when you're in 200 level and you tend to increase the fees again. It kind of shatters the person's structure, and the person has to go back to the drawing board, and it puts a lot of panic. So while I commend the Nelfund initiative, it's really amazing. It's working. It's one development that I commend Nigerians for picking from the Western countries. But then again, also put an eye on the incident rise in cost of school fees in these schools. But then again, kudos. Moving on to my second story of interest, it says resident doctors and federal government clash over 48 billion naira arrears as strike paralyzes hospitals nationwide. Now, the story says the face-off between the federal government and the National Association of Resident Doctors has intensified following a dispute over the actual amount released to settle outstanding arrears owed to health workers. Now, although the government claims to have released 11.995 billion naira to ease the ongoing nationwide strike, NARD insists that its members across 91 hospitals will not return to work until all 19 of their demands are met. Now, NARD's president, Dr. Mohammed Usman Suleiman, told The Guardian that the figures announced by the government were very wrong and far below what is owed. He said that while the Ministry of Finance had indeed begun processing payments under the Consolidated Medical Salary Structure (CONMES) and the Consolidated Health Salary Structure (CONHES), the total amount due to doctors stands at 48 billion, not 41 billion, as claimed by the federal government. Now, according to him, although about 11 billion naira of the release funds are meant for doctors, only a portion directly benefits resident doctors. He explained that the payments categories recently cleared, including out-treatment allowance and the balance of COVID-19 hazard pay, covered just 2 of the association's 19 long-standing demands. Now, he said the 25 over 35% arrears being discussed apply to all health sector staff, not just doctors. Out of the 48 billion, the government has so far released 41 billion naira, but even within that, the resident doctors are receiving less than what they should. Now, he continued and said, "We appreciate the Minister of Finance, Mr. Wale Edu, for acting promptly, but the Ministry of Health should focus on taking serious and genuine actions in sorting out the issues on their table rather than taking the success of another agency of government." He added that the association has yet to see significant progress on other unresolved issues, including welfare improvements, salary adjustments, and conditions of service. Now, this particular story is very dear to my heart as a Nigerian citizen. Also, I think it should concern every Nigerian because we're talking about the health care sector. This is not one sector to play with. Not like any sector should be played with, but this particular sector is one that Nigerians are missing out on a great deal. First of all, we have brain drain in this particular sector because the doctors who have gone through the hurdles of education, right, would now come out and be paid peanuts, sometimes old salaries for months. And now because of that, you see them, migrating to other nations where their skill sets, where they are appreciated, right, where their efforts are recognized, and nobody's owing you salaries. And then for every passing year, Nigerian government will come out and tell you, oh, how you should stay back and make your country better. But you can't do that under these circumstances. Now, look at the doctors have been on strike for a while now. Have you paused for a minute to think about the fate of the patients in the hospitals? I saw a news, I think it was yesterday, that said, oh, patients are left in very sorry situations. Some are even discharged because there are no doctors to attend to them. This is not what we should be talking about in 2025. And now the federal government, of course, they've disbursed some money. But now they give us some figures that the NAT president categorically tells us that that figure is wrong. You can't come and tell us that our request of 48 billion you're telling us is 41. Come on, the disparities are just a lot. I think we should sit down and fix these things. Now, beyond the doctors, let's stop acting like the doctors are the only recognized people in the healthcare sectors. Other people, the lab scientists, the nurses, the cleaners even, right? All these people are entitled to their benefits as workers in Nigeria. So please, let's make the adjustments. Let's meet these conditions so that our patients, our sick relatives, families will have something to fall back on. Not all of us can afford to fly out of the country to get proper medical care. So the little one that we are entitled to, yes, it's our right as a nation. Please, let's put it in order. Because, like I said, the brain drain is a lot, and we're going to still see more. Because the way we're going, I'm not sure we're ready for this in this country. Anyway, moving on to my last story of interest. It says, Chad shuts borders with Nigeria over U.S. threats. The story says the Chad government has announced an immediate closure of its border with Nigeria on heightened security concerns fueled by rumors of purported U.S. forces movement in parts of West Africa. Now, military sources in N'Djamena confirmed on Monday that the President Mahamat Idris Deby Itno ordered a military lockdown on the Nigerian border after intelligence indicated that terrorist actors from northern Nigeria were planning to cross into Chad. Now, according to Zagazola Makama, Chadian troops and armored vehicles have been deployed to critical routes from Nigeria, and all units are now in full readiness. President Deby reportedly warned that no armed group or foreign force will be allowed to enter Chadian soil under any disguise. The border closure comes amid growing regional tension and speculation over America's alleged military activities in the Sahel and West Africa. Now, security experts say Chad's action is a precautionary step aimed at protecting its borders and preventing infiltration by militants who may seek to exploit the current instability in the region. Now, I particularly picked this story so I can highlight something that has been ongoing for a while, which is the genocide is allegedly happening in Nigeria. We've seen pictures, we've seen videos, we've seen a lot of people, especially in the northern area, come out to say a couple of things. And 2 days ago, President Trump reacted and called Nigeria a nation of particular concern. And, that has sparked a lot of reactions for the last 2 days. And, something about sending the U.S. troops and all of that. Even though the government has come out and said, oh, there's no such thing as killing of Christians. Oh, there's, all of that. And then I think it was yesterday we saw in news, or this morning rather, that our president Tinubu is set to meet with Trump regarding the issue. Now, here's what I have to say. we can't totally rule out the fact that these things are happening. And I feel like sometimes our government, our federal government, are detached from the realities of the happenings in Nigeria, because sometimes they act very oblivious. It's as though nothing we are experiencing. I mean, take for instance what's happening with the economy. You tell us and say, oh, it's getting better, or the prices of food are crashing down, and then you go into the regular markets, you're not seeing these changes, and then you're wondering, where are you getting your stats from? Who's giving you data? Right? Have you come up from your high horse? Have you gone into the markets? It's the same thing with these ones. You're seeing videos. You've not even, I'm not sure you've even taken the pains of going to these places to confirm. Every day you're seeing coffins buried, all of these things. And then you still look us in the face and tell us these things are not happening. Now, I'm not saying that the killings are particular to Christians. Of course, the Muslims are killed as well. But let's establish something. There are killings happening in the nation. You can't act oblivious to this. And then just this evening, I saw a tweet by the Nigerian, I think it's Nigerian military forces, right? And then they posted something about rescuing 2 victims, Kogi kidnapped, something like that. And somebody, in fact, 2 people, I think there are even more people, dug up the same images they used, right? And compared it, and it was exactly the same thing, meaning these people regurgitated an image from 9 months ago. 9 months ago, right? And you posted it on your Twitter page and tell us, oh, to show us that you're working, whereas you didn't do anything. You just brought out a former picture. How are we supposed to believe that you're serious in this nation? It doesn't make any sense. I am very, very, very curious to know what President Tinubu is going to speak to Trump about, because we can't act like we don't know these things are happening. There is insecurity in Nigeria. There's an insurgency. There's a lot of fear. Everyone is scared, right? So let's I don't know. I really don't know. But I'm curious to know what Tinubu is going to tell Trump. But I'm just saying, we can't continue to act like we are blind to the happenings in this nation. It's not safe anymore, especially those in the northern region. No area is actually safe, if I dare say that. But those in the northern region are living practically every day, not living every day like their last days. And we can't continue like this in this nation. We can't. Anyway, that's all the stories that caught my interest today. We'll go on a short break, and when we come back, we'll dive into our topic for tonight. Please stay with us. Don't go away.
Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I need to see light for my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need light.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we'll bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria's energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we will analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.
Welcome back. If you're just tuned in, our topic tonight is on the State of States 2025 and what the numbers say about governance and development. Before we get into it, please let's hear what you have to say about everything we've talked about. Remember, you can join the conversation by sending an SMS or WhatsApp to 0818-038-4663. Also, the phone lines are now open. You can call on 070-250-07749 and also on 0701-4242-420. Let's hear what you have to say. Now, good governance, my opinion, is not just about elections like we all are clamoring for. I mean, INEC 2027 is coming. In fact, for Anambra States, next week, oh, sorry, this weekend, this Saturday, is their gubernatorial election. So we want to always link governance to these elections. But it's majorly what happens after that counts, right? The State of States report helps citizens and, policymakers see where money goes, see how it's managed, and whether development is actually happening where it should. And at a time when many Nigerians actually feel disconnected from government performance, this kind of data helps us, mirror more like reflect not only on what is wrong, but also where progress is quietly being made in the nations. And this conversation is about turning that data into civic power, because when citizens understand the numbers, they can, demand better results. And some of the key issues we are going to explore are what the State of States 2025 reports reveals about Nigeria's fiscal health, how states are performing in terms of internally generated revenue, in terms of debt and federal dependence. We would also look at the link between the financial transparency, accountability. If you know me on this show, you know that I'm big on that. And, the real development outcomes. And finally, how citizens, civil societies, and the media can use this report to ask better questions and drive reforms. And joining us to drive this discourse, I have engineer Adejoke Akimbode, a senior research and policy analyst at Budget, the civic tech organization behind the reports. Good evening, Adejoke, and thank you for joining me tonight.
Good evening.
I think you're muted. I can't hear you, ma'am.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
I can't still hear you. Could you check your connection, please? I mean, I can see you. You're very pretty, but just check if you're muted.
No, I'm not muted. Can you hear me?
Oh, yeah, perfect. Thank you. All
Okay.
right. Thank you
Good
for
evening.
joining me on the show again.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, let's get into this quickly. For those who may not be familiar with these things, what exactly is the State of States report, and why is it so important in the Nigerian's governance space?
Thank you. The State of State report is our annual flagship at Budget that actually looks into how the subnationals, that is, all the states in Nigeria, how they are performing when it comes to governance, when it comes to the states, each state's fiscal health, when it comes to revenue generation, when it comes to how they are, the kind of expenditures that they are carrying out, be it especially when it comes to capital investment in the states, and even and of course development outcomes. So this report is actually like one of the few public tools available that allows everyone, citizens to see how much states are earning, how they are actually spending the money they are earning, both from IDR and FAC allocation, how much, and also looks into the debts, so how much each state is owing annually, and also looks at it tells us how if citizens are actually getting value for public money, because whether we like it or not, this money belongs to everybody,
Right.
So that's what the report looks into. And I mean, the report is very important. It matters a lot because it actually tries to move the conversation from politics and rhetoric to performance, and not just performance, measure performance. So you are able to measure how each state, to measure each state's performance, on an annual basis. So that is what the report looks into. It's not just about opinions. There is evidence. I mean, and the evidence is just data, because we don't sit down in our office to manufacture this data. It's actually
Yeah.
data that is available from these states. We use their audited financial statements and their budget implementation reports. So this data is coming from the states, not from us just trying to do 2 plus 2 in our office, right? So we use this data information, and because this the audited report is kind of technical, not everybody can pick up these statements and understand. So that is where we come in Budget, and to, analyze this data and write it in a report in a way that is actually readable and understandable to citizens. So that is why this report is very important, because the report actually tries to measure both the progress some states are making, and also the systemic problems that some states continue to face. You see some states a lot of states are over dependent on foundation allocation, and you see some states that are improving on their internally generated revenue. So this report tries to look into all these things and how states are also managing their debts, both domestic debts and foreign states, basically. And also an aspect of the report also speaks to service delivery. So how much is the states, investing in its people, human capital development, basically.
All right. I mean, I'm really impressed because you see, Nigerians and data almost don't stay in the same sentence. So I really like that data is involved, because a lot of us citizens, we react based off on hearsay, right? And then we run with it. But when there is a data to back up what we hear, it helps us make better decisions, right? And stand in the better option, stand with the better option. But now, looking at the 2025 findings that you guys have, what major trends or surprises stood out for you in this year?
I think the first thing I will say is that on a we've done this report for the past 10 years, so this year is actually like a special one for us. It's our 10th year
anniversary
of writing the state of the report. Yes, so it was very, very special for us. So we didn't just look at how states have performed in the last 1 year from 2023 to 2024. We also looked at how they performed over the past 10 years, right?
Okay.
And unfortunately this year we were only able to look into 35 states. We had to exclude River State because of the state of emergency that happened earlier in the year. So their data was not accessible to us.
Okay.
And it's very unfortunate because River State has always been one of the best performing states over the years, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. So, this year would have been a special one for them, but unfortunately we could not, add them to our reports. And I think that's the first thing that stood out this year. And also another thing that we noticed is the fiscal gap between states. It keeps widening while some states get still stronger. You see some states like Lagos State, for example, really improving in their IGR. You see some other states that they keep lagging behind when it comes to IGR generation, right? And also another thing is debt sustainability. This has become a growing concern because you see a lot of states that they cannot manage their debt. They keep borrowing, but you really cannot point to what they're actually using these borrowings for, because a lot of states actually borrow to pay salaries, their recurrent expenditure, which is not meant to be. If you are borrowing, you should look for something that is going to improve the lives of the citizens, because as I said, that the public money belongs to everybody. The debts borrowed from states, it is everybody that is owing that money, not just the states at the end of the day. So if you are borrowing on my behalf, then I want to get value for that loan that you are taking on my behalf, right?
Yeah.
You see a lot of states in our last year's reports, because what we do is we use last year's data for this year's report. So for this year's report, we use 2025 data. So if you look at the 2024 reports, in which we use 2023 data, you see states like River State and Lagos State. They were the only 2 states that could actually, generate enough IGR to cover their operating expenses. But coming to this year's report, because of course, like I said, we had to exclude River State. So we see states like Lagos State still maintaining that status quo, and we see like Enugu, in fact Enugu led Lagos State this year, which is very, very impressive and shocking for us.
Impressive,
Yes,
really.
enough IGR to cover the operating expenses, and that is what we want to see. The fact that yes, we have some states that keep being in that fiscal sustainability ranking. We want to see new states coming into the picture as well. For the first time, we saw states like Abia State moving to the first 5 when it comes to fiscal sustainability. They've never been in fact, they've never featured in like the top 10. But this they didn't just feature in top 10; they featured in first 5.
I'm particularly excited about that. But go on.
Yeah, so like I mean, which is very impressive for us because we have states like Lagos State, we have states like Anambra State that have been consistently at the top 5 over the years. So Abia State coming from nowhere and being in the first 5 makes sense for us. Last year, Kwara State also entered the first 5 and they still maintained that status for this year as well. So that those are notable things for us because we want to ensure that all states are performing very well. And the only way they can perform very well is when they can actually when their fiscal health is very, very sustainable, when they can generate enough IGR, to sustain themselves. So let's even say federal allocation doesn't come in, how do they survive? That is what we are actually advocating for. I mean everybody likes free money, right? But then we want states to see federal allocation as just extra benefits, not something that they should just depend on. So that is actually our aim of looking at the state books year in, year out.
All right. I mean, that's impressive, right? Now, some states, like you've mentioned, Abia State, Enugu, they've greatly improved their internally generated, their IGR, right? So, but what would you say are the strategies they used that other people can learn from? Any ideas?
I mean, basically, is to ensure that they there's no loophole when it comes to IGR generation. There are several ways. I think the major thing is that we need states to digitize their tax collection,
Okay.
right? And I will use Lagos State for example. I live in Lagos State, and you see all these NURTW when they're collecting maybe taxes. I will call it taxes from drivers, bus drivers and all. This money is collected manually. So how do we ensure that they remit these monies to the government pockets? It is best that Lagos State, or state government generally digitize their tax collection. That is one major way to ensure that the money that is being collected is actually going to the right channels, right? And also we also need states. Each state have their own unique they have their unique sources of revenue or unique ways in which they can actually generate revenue. There's tourism in some states. Every state in Nigeria have 1 or 2 minerals that can actually, tap into to generate revenue. So we need states to look at, okay, what is peculiar to my state that I can actually make money from and, pay at additional or be intentional about that sector and generate enough IGR basically. So I would say that a lot of states that are improving on their IGR, they can always do better. It's never enough, right? So a state like Lagos State, Rivers State should not say, oh, we generate enough IGR. No, we need to keep improving on it. And also states can also look at, oh, what is my counterparts doing differently that's making them perform better than me? How do I learn from these states? It's not like State, for example, can learn from Lagos State. It's not like Oyo State can learn from Lagos State, So how is River State generating enough IGR? It's not like Bayelsa can learn from their neighboring states. They can learn from each other as well. So what is this state doing that I'm not doing? What am I doing wrongly? How do I improve on it, basically?
All right, we'll just rush off to a very quick break. On a very quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue the conversation. Please stay with us. You're welcome back. If you're just joining us, we're talking about data. We're talking about progress according to data from the budgets that states in Nigeria have made. And I'm speaking to Adejoke Akimbode, right? And she's talking us through this particular conversation. Adejoke, are you still with us?
Yes, I am.
Oh, great. Okay, so let's have this particular question because now this is something that bothers. In fact, this is something that is very talked about, very much. Everybody talks about it, but then we need something from data, okay? How much of the challenge That is the challenge of struggling states, according to your data now. How much of the challenge is about leadership capacity and how much is about structural or systemic issues? You can give
So
instances.
okay, so I will say, oh, okay, so 50% is about structural. I won't, I don't think I want to give it a particular percentages, right? But
Okay.
I believe that, I mean, if you look at the data in the reports, right, it just shows that most states still rely basically on federation allocation, and that actually makes them very vulnerable. So the truth is, our major aim is to ensure that states can actually are sustainable on their own without federal allocation. So it now depends on, okay, so how much can my state, generate? And you have some states that they can actually generate a lot of revenues, but if you don't manage these funds efficiently and effectively, you won't achieve as much as a state that's even generating way lesser than you, right? So at times it's not about the figures, it's about how you manage your revenue, how you manage your finances, basically. And that is why government needs to ensure that they put people, competent people, without emotions attached to, putting people in I mean in places where you know that, oh, this person can perform better in, let's say, Ministry of Finance, this person can perform better in Ministry of Environment. So you need to ensure that you have competent people in your cabinet and
Right.
people that you know that year in, year out, or every day they know what they're supposed to do and they're doing what they're meant to do adequately. You don't need to say, oh, I want to compensate, this person is my family member, this person is my friend. So, I mean, we first thing is that states need to ensure that they have competent people in their cabinet. So, if some states cannot, I mean, Lagos State, and I will keep talking about Lagos because obviously I live in Lagos State, right?
That's all right.
Lagos State has always been an outlier, when it comes to agile generation. So you
Yeah.
don't expect a state like Osun State, and I'm mentioning Osun State because I am from Osun State,
Okay.
to generate as much agile as a Lagos State. But it is possible to have Osun State perform better than Lagos State, depending on how they are actually, managing their revenues at the end of the day. So they need to ensure that, irrespective of how much they are, they can generate in their states, they have competent people in their cabinet. They ensure that the kind of capital investment that they are actually, putting in place are kind of investment that can actually pay for themselves. So you don't need to put a structure and you need to, and then you keep maintaining it again from the government pockets, right? So you need to ensure that the capital investment that you are putting in place is something that can actually, maintain itself. Then states also need to look into collaborating with the public partnerships,
Okay.
collaborate with the public sector also to, put a lot of things in place. States cannot do it alone, whether we like it or not. And that is why some states that have tourism centers in their states is actually like an added advantage. They need to take that, make use of that advantage. People will troop into your state, and that will generate a lot of revenues. So what these states need to do is, number one, is to recognize the unique things that you have in your state that can, help your finances better, to be better. Then also put in competent people that can actually manage these sectors for you. That will ensure that any revenue that you are generating is being, is coming to the government pockets and is being spent adequately, efficiently, and effectively, and you are getting value for whatever money that you are spending, and ensure that you reduce your dependence on federal allocations as much as possible, and just see FAC allocation as just a bonus to you at the end of the day.
Right. Now, there's often times a lot of talk about accountability, right? Now, how can citizens, civic groups, even the media how can we use this report to hold governors and state assemblies to account?
I mean, I think our major reason for, you know, writing this sort of state report is to put information out there to the public, is to put information into the hands of citizens, because like I mentioned earlier, the state audited financial statement or their budget implementation report is not something that an average Nigerian can pick up and understand. And that is why we sit back to analyze that data to ensure that anybody that picks up state of state report, I mean, you don't need to read the whole report. It's very voluminous. So you can just say, oh, I want to know what is going on in my state of where I come from, or I want to know what is going on where I reside, in the state that I reside. So we want people to pick up that report and actually use it to ask questions, and not just questions, evidence-based questions, because the data speaks for itself. I mean, anybody that picks up that report that, oh, so what is happening in Oyo State? How much is Oyo State generating, annually, internally? How much of their revenue goes into debt servicing? How much are they borrowing? How much are we even owing in Oyo State, right? And how much these borrowed funds, what are they using them for? Are they producing real development outcomes, or are they using borrowed funds to pay salaries? So these are the kind of questions that we want citizens to ask, and the data is there for them. So it's very easy. We need citizens to ask these questions, and these questions, I mean, backed by credible data. We need it's going to move the conversation from emotions to evidence,
Right.
and I mean, we have civil society groups can also use this as a form of advocacy tools, organize town meetings, track budget implementation in your communities. I mean, monitor how, even you can use it to monitor how state assemblies actually perform the oversight roles as well, because we want to ensure that the state house of assemblies actually, they have the oversight functions, right? So are they actually performing their roles adequately? And I mean, for the media, this our report is a very strong accountability tool, right?
Right.
So it's rather than the media relying on political statements, it can actually interrogate the numbers directly using this our report. It shows what is working and what is not working. And at the end of the day, right, transparency is actually just powerful when people use it. So you just not just use it, oh, we want the government to be transparent, we want the government to be accountable. You have this report, the data is there. Then you can actually use that to demand accountability and transparency from the government.
That's really interesting. I mean, I'm going to ask you where they're going to get the report, but before I do that, how do we move this data to real development? Because, of course, it's one thing to have it, it's another thing to actually see it work out practically. How do we move that to real development? And what's the most practical way to turn these findings into meaningful change, especially at the state level?
Well, this question is actually, very important because data alone doesn't change lives,
Yes.
right? What change lives is how we use. So how do we use data? And I think the first thing I would say is institutionalizing data-driven decision making. So governments, subnational governments now, they need to, integrate this kind of reports into their planning. When they want to planning, maybe budget planning, budget processes, they need to ensure that, okay, so we are preparing for 2026 budget now, for example, right? They need to ensure that their budget is actually guided by real fiscal realities. Because you see some states budgets, when they bring out their proposed budgets and you look at, oh, their proposed revenue, and we all know that this is just over ambitious. I mean, it's not possible.
Yeah.
Like I used to have a figure. So they need to be actually, realistic and not just put out any figure. So yes, this is how much they think they can generate. So they need to, so this kind of reports will actually help them to realize that, okay, so this is how we can plan for 2026 budgets. This is how much revenue that the state can sustainably raise, right? And this is how we want to spend this money to deliver the most impact to the citizens. And I think another thing is strengthening fiscal responsibility and transparency laws. I mean, states need to have strong frameworks when it comes to debt management, especially, budget disclosure and even public procurement. And that is why open contracting, comes in place. We need to ensure that your books are open 100% to the citizens. Nothing should be hidden, right? And I mean, that is how, and I think the major thing that citizens lack in government, both state governments and the federal government, is trust. So they need to build that trust back. I need to be to trust that, oh, this is what my state government is saying. I believe them 100%. I don't need to doubt them that, oh, this is they're saying it's not possible. I don't believe them. So they need to actually ensure that they build that trust back in their citizens. And when their frameworks is strengthened, and they have transparency laws, everything will fall in place for them, because it's not something that we can achieve in 1 year, in 2 years to say, oh, states will start performing 100%. It's step by step, right? I mean, because at the end of the day, transparency should be like it should be a standard practice, right? Not
Yes,
like something that you're not doing us a favor by being transparent. It's
exactly.
ideally a standard practice. So yes. So then I think the last thing I will say is to promote collaboration. So state governments need to learn how to work with civil society organizations, private sector, and even development partners. To actually translate this data into actionable reforms. So we need a lot of reforms in our states. So, but from this data, if they pick up our report and say, oh, this is how they said we have performed in 2024, how do we translate this data to have more performance or a better performance rather in 2025? We need to have some maybe new two, three, four reforms to ensure that our performance in 2025 beat our performance in 2024. I mean, you have a state like Cross River State that last year their fiscal performance was, they were on the fifth position last year, and this year they moved from 30th position. You
Wow.
wonder how did it go from number 5 to number 30 out of 35 states that were accessed. So it's something that you want to ensure that, oh, I'm in the first 5 or the first 10 position. I want to maintain this. I mean, even if you cannot perform better, can you just maintain status quo?
Yeah.
Right. So it's something that states to work with the development partners and private sector and even civil society, even citizens. I mean, we have a lot of think tanks. Nigeria have beautiful, we have a lot of intellectuals that can actually work with. The academia is there that state government can work with. So you want to ensure that you are maintaining your performance or you are performing better than the previous years and not
And
going backward.
yeah, this actually would even help. It looks like a healthy competition, right? So the competition is not about who siphons more money, right? It moves from that to who serves their state better. It's just like being in primary school. You're struggling to maintain your first position, struggling to maintain or move from your 10th position to your first position. So I actually think data like this is something they should embrace. But in your opinion, 5 years from now, if the different states of Nigeria decide to run a data-driven governance, what would it look like to you? Can you paint a picture?
I mean, yes, so let's say in 5 years' time they decide to run a data-driven governance. I think data is very powerful and it speaks what is happening. It's not just somebody saying, oh, I did this, I did that. The data speaks for itself. And that is why we need state governments to ensure that whatever data they are putting in their audited financial statements and their BRR is as correct as possible. That is the only way we can ensure that, okay, so the data they're giving us to work with is very is accurate, right? It's accurate. And that is why what we do again is when we get this data from their reports, we send them back to each state's data, we send them back to actually validate for us to ensure that, oh, we're on the same page. Some states respond, some do not respond. So we also, because I mean, data is very technical. It's very easy to make mistakes when it comes to
Right.
data. So when we send data back to them, we wish all of them can actually respond to us to ensure that we're on the same page. Because you see a lot of some states will come back to us after they now see our set of states report to say, oh, this data is actually not correct. But we got it from your reports. We didn't manufacture this data. And we sent it to you for validation, but you did not respond. So if they can actually be responding to us, we want to say that if we have data-driven governance, is something that is actually helpful for us so that anybody can say, oh, this is how much my state is generating, this is how much we are owing. I mean, this is how much they are using as debt servicing, this is how much they are using for the current expenditure, for capex capital investment, this is how much they are using. Because at the end of the day, we just want good governance. That is the only thing this is clamoring for, and good governance is measurable. So yes, so that's because and I also need states or I need citizens rather to see that I mean that states are borrowing funds, both be it domestic debt and foreign debt is actually not a problem. Borrowing isn't a problem, right? I mean unproductive application of debt is actually the problem.
Yeah.
So if they borrow funds How do they actually apply? What do they use this debt for? That should be our main focus. When you say, oh, a state is borrowing, this is how much or your state is owing, what are they using these borrowings for? That should be the issue for us, really.
All right, thank you so much. Unfortunately, that's all we can take tonight. Thank you, Adejoke Akimbode, Senior Research and Policy Analyst at Budget. And I do hope you have a good evening, ma'am. All right, back to us viewers. You know, numbers don't tell the whole story. We know that, but they help us see where to start. And the State of States 2025 report reminds us that leadership choices shape everyday realities. We've heard our guests and we've heard what she said about leadership as well. And you know, data also help us shape our daily realities, especially when it's understood by citizens. So I do commend, you know, Budget for breaking this thing down, because when the citizens understand it, it becomes a form of power. And you know, like our old national anthem would say, it says, "O Lord of creation, direct our noble cause, guide our leaders right, help our youth the truth to know." Now, the truth is in the numbers in this case, and it's up to us, the citizens, to act on it. Now, before we go, remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Official Upgrade TV. Drop a comment, like, share, follow all our social media platforms. And if you missed our quote earlier, here it is. It says, "Good governance is treating development as a mass movement in order to see the fruits of development reach the poor and the downtrodden." And this was said by India's Narendra Modi. My name is Chioma Kalu, and this has been Waste Prime Time. Do have a good evening, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Nigeria, by extension Africa, battles a growing youthful population, and with little or no meaningful engagement, lives a ticking time bomb on our hands. We are a blessed continent with great wealth, both in people and material. Our focus on ways remains driving conversations that affects us all. Topics in the news, social concerns, politics, leadership, governance, empowerment, resource management, conflict management, finance, SME sustainability, technological innovation, food security, health, education, brain drain, our well-being, citizenship, and much more. Our goal is to continuously drive these conversations, keep them burning at the table to effect a positive change, both for our nation and continent. Ways, what are you saying, has a secret ingredient that completes the conversation every single episode, and that ingredient is you. Our past conversations shaped our yesterday. To shape our tomorrow, we must keep talking. So, I want to hear you. Be a part of our live conversations Mondays through Fridays. And let's all have our say.